Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am now, I hope, delighted to welcome Michael Law, CEO of Carat US, and Melissa Grady, CMO of Cadillac, to the Mediaocean Beat TV Leadership Summit here at CES 2022. Welcome, Michael, and hopefully we're going to welcome Melissa in just a second. Yes, welcome, Melissa. How are you both? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Wonderful. Right, we are here today to talk about marketing transformation. So let's dive straight in. Melissa, give us a sense of what kinds of trends out there you are trying to respond to as you think about Cadillac's marketing organization. What's going on?
There are so many trends right now that I think are so interesting, from some of the basic ones like linear TV really decreasing, and how do we respond to that, to things like NFTs and blockchain and how that's really potentially transforming the industry, changing the way we do things. So, I mean, I think when we look at the trends, there are just so many things. I think to start with the basics, the decline of linear TV, which honestly, going into the pandemic, I really thought linear TV was going to see a bit of a renaissance, and that is not what happened. So that's been an interesting one for us. I think, we have an audience first approach. So when we look at linear TV, it's really part of a wider video portfolio. And, as we're seeing streaming rise and seeing TV really fall, those other elements in the portfolio are becoming more and more important. But I think what's really interesting is, as advertisers, those are really honestly more effective once we get scale and reach. And then I think, we look at some of the fun trends like immersive. What is Web3 or the metaverse really going to be? Are NFTs really the new thing that are here to stay, or are they a fun fad, or what does that look like? I think there's a lot of interesting things going on.
Michael, what's your take, sir?
Yeah, well, I agree with all the things Melissa said, of course. I think, when we think about TV, it's a pivotal moment. And I think consumers, they don't, we spend a lot of time talking about streaming versus linear and our fancy vernacular, but to them, they're just watching television, and it's never been a more powerful medium than it is today. I mean, I think the amount of amazing content that exists, whether it, you see it when a new show launches on a streaming service, the amount of views that it gets in a short amount of time, the race for great content. And I think one of the other trends will be, how can brands integrate themselves into that content to create a better user and commercial experience, and how do brands become content themselves? So I think there's a huge opportunity in that space. But certainly, metaverse, as we think about digital transformation, making advertising more addressable, these are trends. I fear a little bit, after spending a week at home between Christmas and New Year's and watching too much television, that the things we'll talk about today, has been talked about, is not what the consumer is actually experiencing yet. So we have to kind of hold up our end of the bargain, that we're delivering on what feels like a great customer experience, but maybe isn't quite translating to that on the other side of the screen yet.
But I guess from a point of view of you and your clients, I guess the big change in a sense is choice, that both audiences and advertisers have far greater choice in terms of how they choose to reach consumers. Within that new media mix, what are you finding is working well, and what's gone more difficult?
Well, I'll start with kind of what you were saying and what Melissa said. Like, we have to start with consumers and listen to consumers. The media mix should be guided by where we need to go meet them. They're not going to come meet us anymore. We can't just put an ad on a TV show at 8 o'clock and 40 million people show up. It's become a much more personalized user experience. I think the things that work well are still largely the same. TV and that screen, the video experience, sight, sound, and motion are still the most powerful way to engage an audience. That said, unique, innovative, breakthrough ways, like the ways that brands are using TikTok and Snapchat today, I think are really differentiating. how you do that at scale is going to become a big question, because I think they're cool for marketers, they're cool for us as an industry, and but their reach is maybe not as great as we want it to be. So I think, how we find ways to do that innovative work and then scale it, or that we're able to do enough of those pieces of work efficiently enough that you can create great experiences. So I think a lot of the fundamentals of media haven't changed much, that sight, sound, and motion still rule, but every time you can create a really cool experience that gets customers' attention and engagement, that's going to get them more kind of embedded with the brand and feeling the brand a little bit more.
So with great choice comes great fragmentation. Melissa, to paraphrase a well-known Marvel movie doing the rounds at the moment, TV is clearly enjoying a transformation of late, and as a marketeer, there's a lot more to TV than there used to be a decade ago. We've got addressable, we've got streaming, we've got data-driven linear, we've got all sorts of things going on. For you, how is the role of TV changing? How are you taking advantage of these new opportunities?
I think it's a lot of the conversation that we're having already. The role of TV, I think for us, the role of TV has been changing over the past couple of years. TV itself, when we say linear, because I think there's two things and we're parsing those out, right? There's TV as we think about it linear, and then there's TV as the consumer thinks about it, which is really what Mike was saying, which is the screen in the home that people are consuming media on. And if we look at those two things, I think the role of linear for us has been moving more to a tentpole type moment. So how do you use something like the Super Bowl, like football, which is going to be live? How do you use those tools in an arena where honestly viewership keeps going down, but you do have those moments to show up, versus when we look at video and all the different ways that that's consumed, that for us is really where there's a lot of opportunity. We as marketers really want to be storytellers, and we've been telling a lot of stories over years in a 30-second spot. Now, I don't think that the 30-second spot is going away, but I think some of the opportunities that we have now, as Mike was saying, about how do we integrate into different types of content, and what does that look like in the future, and how do we make our brand relevant that way, to different partnerships that we've been doing, which honestly now are cross-screen. And if you look at some of the things that we've done with Twitch, with 60-second documentaries, we've done a ton and had so much engagement in a meaningful way as a brand with people through 60-second documentaries, and even things like Twitter, which now offer us live streaming and out of home and all these different extensions. I think it really unlocks the creativity and the ability for us to be able to really engage with people, hopefully in the way that they want, which is really what we're looking for. I mean, a lot of people have heard me say this. People think they hate advertising, but they don't. If you ask anyone why they're watching the Super Bowl, it's to see the great acts. It's our job to be telling these stories in the right way that people want to hear them. And so I think that's really what the changing landscape affords us, is the opportunity to really break the mold and do some really fun, interesting things.
And I guess, as you say, for a marketeer, a marketing organization like Cadillac that wants to use video to tell great stories that really engage your customers, there's never been a more exciting time. There's more option and choice out there. Michael, what would be a Carat perspective on these kinds of changes that Melissa's been talking about? Are you now seeing video as really one of the most exciting media out there in all its many diverse forms?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, we have to unlock, to use Melissa's word, unlock and just take down some of the barriers that we've created ourselves about a media plan, a media budget. Oh, we have to spend X amount. And I think we're starting to move past day parts, but anything that we can do to think about, a consumer first approach, maximizing reach. I think the challenge that's coming along with that is we've got a lot of legacy inertia and tools on both the planning side and the measurement side that guide you in that direction. I joke sometimes that it's like you live your life at home and then you go to work and you forget everything you actually do at home and just say, oh, well, the tool told me that this should be my media mix. And I think that we've got to break some of that kind of legacy practice. But importantly, we have to be able to measure it, and we have to be able to look at the impact of different events across screens and how are people consuming, whether it be the Olympics, the Super Bowl, basketball, even any kind of live entertainment content. I just saw earlier today the top 100 linear TV shows of the year, 97 sports events, 2 specials, and 1 show that aired after the Super Bowl. But that doesn't mean that TV is still not really powerful and that you can't use it in a smart way. So I subscribe, thankfully, to Melissa's idea that, you know, there's a way to use tentpoles and there's a way to use addressability to be more efficient and effective. The key is we've got to measure it better, we've got to create better currencies, and then we've got to make sure that we're kind of, you know, I say buy TV like you watch TV. So buy media like you consume media.
So it's not just TV that's being transformed, of course. It's every marketing organization is having to go through its own transformation to better address these new opportunities. Melissa, give us some insights as a leader in the Cadillac business into the steps that you're taking to transform your marketing organization. How are your teams, your capabilities, your partnerships evolving?
Yeah, you know, there's a few things I think that we've really focused on. One thing is the way that I have my department organized, we have channel activation as one department. So whether that's media, whether it's web, whether it's owned web or it's other digital advertising, social, that all falls under one person. And within that team, there's an audience group. And so we take an audience first approach. That group looks at audience, analyzes the audience, understands where they are, and we try to manage that across channels so that you don't have this fragmented experience. If we know that you've seen a TV ad, you've interacted with us in a certain way, how do we respond to that when you come to our website, when you get emails, when all of that? So that's one thing that I think has been really important and pivotal. And I think, you know, just as we talk about transformation right now, one thing that's on my mind as we look at everything is, with working from home in the pandemic, how do we start to transform in bigger, more important ways? Because here we are all on screens because we can't be in person once again. And so one of the things that I don't have an answer to, but that I'm really focusing on right now, and I've started doing a lot of workshops with my teams, is to try to say, what is the new way of working? Let's stop trying to take the old way of working and put it into this box of screens and digital. What are the new tools? What are our new methods? How and when do we come together? So I think, you know, I can't talk about how we're transforming without really looking at how are we operating as an organization as well.
And I think everyone in the creative industries is grappling with that change, that shift to a more hybrid way of working. Michael, tell us a bit about how Carat is dealing with these changes. How are you changing your organization?
Yeah, well, certainly a lot of the same challenges as everybody with what does work from home look like? How do you motivate? I really saw in the last 6 months of last year, pre this kind of surge, the amount of people that were coming into the office and that were craving that in-person experience, and some of the efficiency that came with that, some of the creativity, just those hallway conversations starting to happen. So I think we want to give people the flexibility to have that experience, and also have the comfort level of being there, but being able to work in a more hybrid way. So we'll explore lots of different options around that to make sure our people have the best experience possible. But I think from an agency standpoint, the creative spark that comes from being in a room with 3 or 4 people and shooting ideas back and forth and seeing somebody in the elevator, it's hard to replicate that. And there's a lot of screen fatigue that's happening, but we'll keep pushing through, what that hybrid world looks like. So I think we'll continue in that. The thing I would say is that, what we're going to push our teams to do is to be innovative and to look around the corners and to think differently. There's an easy media plan that you can put in front of people, and I won't insert any partners' names here, but you're not going to get fired for buying the Super Bowl, let's say, right? Like, that's a pretty easy thing. But what's another Super Bowl? What's the cool idea? What's the thing that we should be bringing to our clients in a more proactive way? Like, we don't ever want to be reactive and on our heels. Our job is to bring our clients that next great thing. And I think our teams are the best place to do that. Like, they are our customers, they are our consumers. So what are those things that you're doing that you're hearing from your friends and seeing from new partners? Don't be afraid. And this is what's a bummer about not being at CES, right? Like, seeing the tech and seeing the partners that you may not have seen before. Take the time to take that meeting. You never know what's going to come out of it. And it might take 5 calls of me and Melissa of like, here's why I think it's great, but maybe that is the next new idea, versus the one easy call of, hey, we bought the Super Bowl again. Nothing against the Super Bowl. I love it. I'm a big proponent of it. But I think my bigger point is look around the corners, be innovative, and just don't be afraid to try new things, because there's so much opportunity out there for us.
I couldn't agree with you more, Michael. I think they sometimes say that we only really appreciate what we have when it's taken away from us. And I think if there's one thing that's come out of the experience of the last 2 years, it's that real sense of a creative spark that comes from people in a room with a flip chart and some post-it notes, really brainstorming and kicking an idea into shape. We're drawing short of time, and I feel we could go on for at least another hour or two. As a leader in your business, Michael, give us a sense of what's been most challenging over the last 2 years or so during the course of this terrible pandemic. Has it been motivating teams? Has it been staying innovative? Has it been prioritizing? What's been really tough? And then, Melissa, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah, I'll pick all of the above. I think, just inspiring the teams and getting them excited, and that it's weighed on everybody, I think, personally and professionally, the world that we live in. So I have a big philosophy just around you really had to, over the last 2 years, coach people and not an organization. I think you had to look at everybody's individual situation a little bit differently, and how can you help them through that? How can you create motivation for them, give them a North Star, a sense of belonging? And I think it's easy in the hallway to say, good job, I saw what you did, that was awesome. Sometimes, as easy as it is, it's harder to remember to send that email to somebody, hey, great work yesterday. So I think just, the recognition part of it has been hard. I obviously, on the agency side, and I think on the vendor side too, there's an attrition issue in our industry that we're facing about why is it exciting to work in media today, and we as an industry need to solve for that and keep people motivated. But I think just giving people a sense of purpose and belonging has been a big challenge.
And Melissa, from your point of view?
I think you both really hit on all the high things. I think, and we just talked about it, right? At the end of last year, we started having more in-person moments. And as much as we knew that we missed it, we didn't even know how much we missed it. And so staying connected, creating those human moments, having this, because it gets very hard when you're sitting in your office every day, working and dealing with problems, and you get this tunnel vision that honestly just grabbing a cup of coffee with someone or making a comment about their shoes or something really can break that tunnel that you're in. So I think that's been the biggest challenge that we're trying to solve. My team has beyond impressed me, as I think most people think this, with how much they've achieved over the past 2 years. I can't even put my mind around how much we've achieved, but how we stay connected and have those human moments, I think, has been the big challenge.
Now, I want to end our conversation, as Sandra, we are drawing to the end, on a really positive note. So we've had an incredibly challenging period, and hopefully, touch wood, we are emerging from it during the course of this year. What are you feeling positive about? Give us something that you are excited about, that's going to be revelatory in the course of the next 12 months, that we can all take out our notepads and scribble down and look forward to. Melissa, do you want to start? What can we get excited about?
So I think 2 things. The first thing is, I think that because we've had some moments together, we're all starting to figure out what we need to fix with work from home. We had a great session. I think that in person, we're almost at work going to start treating in person more like conferences. How we come together, we have big ideas, we do some fun things. And I think that's really going to shift people. Even doing that once a month or so, even once a quarter, I think it really energizes you. So I'm very excited about how, and we're going to experiment and have some fun with it in my organization. The other thing that I'm really excited about is I think a lot of what we've talked about the changing media landscape, and Mike, I'm so glad you're my partner because that's what I'm looking for. How do we innovate and do the things that people aren't even thinking of? So when you have those ideas, Mike, pick up the phone. I'm really excited about where we're going to go and what we're going to do, and I'm willing to try a lot of things because I think that's how, as a brand, you can really break through and connect. So those are the things I'm excited about.
It's great to see a partnership like this coming to life on screen. Obviously, it's been brought to life many times before, but it's nice to see it sparking creatively here. Michael, a final word from you, sir. Give us something you're excited about, something we can feel positive about in the year ahead.
Yeah, I'll echo Melissa. I think the idea that we're going to be back together in some format, that we're going to spark that creative. I'm happy to see my Delta app filled with flights over the next few weeks of getting to go places and see people. And I just think it's a great moment in time for our industry. I think we have some industry issues to solve, and I have seen this sense of collaboration from sell side, buy side, client side about we need to come together at this moment to solve these things. So I'm really optimistic that we'll put some of our differences aside and say we have to fix some fundamental things that are going to define what the industry looks like for the next 50 years. So let's do that, and then we can differentiate it at a different point. So I think we're at a really pivotal time, and I'm excited that the three of us plus everyone else who's been here today will have some of their own handwriting on what the future of the business looks like.
I couldn't agree more with you, Michael. I think there's something very exciting about seeing the industry now, with perhaps the benefit of some time to reflect, coming together to solve some of those big challenges. So here's to an incredibly exciting year. Michael, Melissa, thank you for a fantastic conversation, and looking forward to connecting with you in person, hopefully in a not too distant future.
Awesome. Thanks, Jon.
Thanks so much for having me.